Alright, hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to discuss the best everyday watches that you can buy at various price points. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because recently I've been getting really into EDC gear. The gear that you take with you on a day-to-day basis, whether it's on your keychain, in your backpack, in your car, and just stuff that's extremely useful and very versatile for any scenario. And because I'm such a watch fanatic, I figured, why don't I make a list of the best everyday carry watches for those out there that want a versatile piece that can, again, handle any scenario just like the gear that they're bringing with them. So in today's video, I'm going to break down the best everyday watch you can buy at various price points starting at $50 and working your way all the way up to $5,000. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so first up here, starting at $50, I want to recommend to you the Casio Duro. So the Casio Duro has become quite a legend within the watch world, especially when looking at the more affordable end of watches because it's just such a great value for money. For just under $50, you get a watch that comes on a steel bracelet, has a rotating dive bezel, 200 meters of water resistance that you can truly count on, and a bang-on accurate quartz movement, and not to mention the various colors that you can choose from. I personally own the Casio Duro and opted for the classic black color, but of course, yes, like I said, there's lots of options out there, and no matter what you choose, you're going to get a very accurate and very reliable watch. And the best part is, because it's a very classic looking analog dive style watch, you can basically wear it for any scenario. Gone are the days of wearing dress watches exclusively with more dress attire. You can basically wear any watch with any attire you're wearing, and so that means a watch like this, the Casio Duro, fits perfectly on the wrist of anyone wearing casual wear all the way up to more formal wear. I truly think you can't go wrong with the Casio Duro, which is why I'm bringing it up here for the $50 entry on the best everyday watches that you can buy. Next up here at $100, I would like to recommend the Casio G-Shock GWM 5610. Now, I actually made a video about this watch fairly recently where I claimed it was the greatest Casio of all time. I know that title might sound a bit hyperbolic, but in my opinion, for $100, this is an outstanding deal. This watch has pretty much all of the standard G-Shock features we've come to know and love, such as a stopwatch, a timer, dual time zones, but also it has multi-band 6 functionality, which means it syncs with radio waves to the accurate time, and it also has tough solar, which means it's of course solar powered as well. So for under $100, you're getting a pretty awesome deal and a very versatile watch. The only major downside of a watch like this as an everyday piece is it's not going to have that level of versatility as a traditional analog watch. Having an LCD display, having it be a digital watch, to me just holds it back a little bit. You're not really going to be able to wear this with more formal or dress wear. Of course, we're all allowed to do whatever we want and wear it with whatever we want, but in my opinion, to have a digital watch with more formal attire just doesn't really look right. So I think that holds back this watch a fair amount, but at the same time, I think a G-Shock, generally speaking, whether it's this model, the GWM 5610, or any model under $100, is going to be a great choice for most people out there to handle most scenarios. Speaking from personal experience, I don't have a whole lot of events that come up in my life that require me to dress up very formally, so a watch like the Casio G-Shock GWM 5610 would work just fine in almost every scenario. Next up here, the best everyday watch under $500, in my opinion, is the Seiko SSK 001. Now, this is one of the Seikos out of their catalog that utilizes their relatively new 4R34 automatic GMT movement. This particular reference of this Seiko GMT has a black dial, a black and gray rotating GMT bezel, and a red GMT hour hand. You'll see that's a common theme throughout this video, that I like watches for everyday scenarios that are really versatile from a color standpoint as well as, what type of functionality they have. I think it's very important to have a black dial watch, a gray dial watch, something that's going to be very versatile for any occasion and just doesn't really look out of place regardless of the season, regardless of what you're wearing. Quite honestly, I don't think you can do much better than this Seiko GMT when looking at watches under $500. Of course, you have that GMT functionality, which lets you track multiple time zones. You have a date wheel. You have just a beautiful looking watch with a relatively versatile size, in my opinion, 42.5 millimeters in case diameter, which may seem a little big, but 46 millimeters in lug tip to lug tip, which I think will make this watch sit very well on any size wrist, and a really nice looking Jubilee style bracelet. So altogether, it's a really nice looking package and a very functional package. Of course, I'm spotlighting in particular the SSK 001, but in my opinion, you can pretty much look at any Seiko GMT over the last couple of years that has the 4R34 movement inside of it, and you're going to get a great deal. They've all been widely named as some of the best deals in watchmaking, and you really can't go wrong. So next up here, looking at the $1,000 price point, I think the best watch you can buy is the Grand Seiko SPGX 061. So this entry does come in with a slight caveat, that being that you're going to have to buy this watch on the pre-owned market. They no longer make the SPGX 061. However, they do make a slightly newer version that's going to cost you a little bit more money, which is the SPGX 261. The only real major difference here is that that reference has Grand Seiko on the dial, whereas the 061 has both Seiko and Grand Seiko on the dial. So if you don't mind the double logos, this watch is an awesome deal. So what you get in this Grand Seiko is a relatively plain package, I'll give you that. There's a black dial, which is the 061, the watch that I named here, but there's also a white dial and a silver dial, the 059 and 063 respectively. And so yes, it's going to be a plain package, whether you choose any of those different dial colors, but it's going to have a pretty solid construction, standard, really high quality Grand Seiko build, and it's going to have a 9F quartz movement inside of it. And that is really the star of the show. That's a movement that's accurate to plus or minus 10 seconds a year. And when you're talking about an everyday watch that can handle any scenario, that is pretty much what you're looking for. It is really hard to find a more accurate watch than a Grand Seiko with a 9F quartz movement inside of it. And if you combine that with a date wheel, you have some versatile dial options, some overall really good build quality from Grand Seiko, 100 meters of water resistance, put that all together and you have a pretty good deal for under $1,000. I've actually owned this watch a couple of different times, specifically in the white dial variation, and both times I owned it, I really enjoyed it, and it was pretty hard to get off my wrist. Every single day I came into my watch box and had to make a decision. It was just a little too easy to grab that one. It was always bang on accurate in terms of time, it was always going to fit whatever I was doing for the day, and that's what overall made it a great everyday watch. Next up here, looking at the $2,500 price point, in my opinion, the obvious pick is the Tudor Ranger. So similar to the Grand Seiko I just mentioned, you will have to buy this watch slightly used if you want to buy it at the $2,500 price point. But for that money, you get a really good deal. In my opinion, probably one of the best deals in all of the sort of mid-tier luxury space. You get a watch that has pretty much Rolex build quality with regard to the way that the case is, the bracelet quality, having on-the-fly adjustment, having a really nice in-house movement. I think 70 hours of power reserve, which is very solid for, again, a fraction of the price that you really should be paying for a watch of that quality. And this might be a hot take, but I truly think that modern day Tudor truly is comparable in quality to modern day Rolex. I've been very fortunate enough to own a few different modern Rolex examples, and having compared them to modern day Tudor, I think they're extremely similar. So when you talk about a watch like the Tudor Ranger, which is essentially a Rolex Explorer with a different stylistic approach, with some slight different features, some better actually when you talk about something like the on-the-fly adjustment system, for $2,500, like I said, that is just an absolute steal in my opinion. We all don't need to be buying watches for multiple thousands of dollars to get true functionality, but if you're going to spend that much, something like the Tudor Ranger is a pretty good deal. And as you can tell, this watch, like many others on this list, have a very versatile, very plain colored dial, one that can look good in any scenario. That really, to me, is at the core of what a great everyday watch is. Something that doesn't have striking colors, that doesn't have an outlandish look, but something that truly can fit into any scenario. I know I keep using that phrase, that it could fit into any scenario, but that is truly what I believe in, that the best everyday watches are ones that are truly versatile. So last up here, looking at the best everyday watch under $5,000, we're going to be talking about the Omega Aqua Terra. For the sake of staying under budget, you are most likely going to have to buy a pre-owned example of this watch as well, but I do think it is worth looking at if you're trying to buy an everyday piece in that luxury under $5,000 space. To me, the Omega Aqua Terra is pretty much the perfect example of an everyday watch. Most of the dials are really beautiful and have some really cool designs and texture to them. They also have 150 meters of water resistance, a really nice bracelet, and just all together is pretty much the ultimate go anywhere, do anything watch. This might be the best everyday watch you can buy at any price point, in my opinion. The Omega coaxial movements as well that come in these watches are just outstanding. So like I said, put it all together, it's just an amazing package. There's pretty much a dial color for everyone out there. Of course, they do have some really nice grays and blacks and whites if you're trying to stay within this theme of very versatile colors. But to me, the Omega Aqua Terra is a must consider. I've been personally debating buying an Omega Aqua Terra for about 5 or 6 years now, pretty much since the start of my watch collecting journey. I know one of these days I will finally pull the trigger, and the reason why I think about a watch like this so much is because it really is so versatile, and I think it's hard to regret a watch of this value and of this level of do-it-all sort of functionality. I know the Omega Aqua Terra is probably mentioned in a lot of different lists for the best go-anywhere, do-anything, EDC watches, whatever you want to call it. But like I said, I think it has to be considered. It looks good on any strap you put on it. It's good in any scenario. It's pretty much, like I said, the definition of what you want in an everyday watch. So for that reason, the Omega Aqua Terra is my best everyday watch under $5,000. But that being said, let me know what you think of my picks for the best everyday watch at each price point. Let me know if any of these are terrible picks. Let me know if you have some other recommendations. I would love to hear them. I think you could really go in any direction for picks like this for the best everyday watch. There's just so many to choose from. So again, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.